Robert, welcome to the program. What's the point of the House of Representatives passing this bill if it's not actually going to become law?
Well, Democrats and Republicans in Congress need to be able to respond to their local constituencies in very different ways than those in the Senate. I mean, there are certainly more in Congress. They represent more distinct, smaller precincts throughout the United States where they're getting a lot of push one way or the other from people who are going to either vote to keep them in office or vote to keep them out. So to some degree, this is a bit of just playing to the center, playing to the constituents.
How can it be that Republicans in the Senate, where we believe there's almost no chance at all of this bill passing, how can it be that Republicans who vote against it, that every single one of their constituents is pro-gun?
Well, I mean, there's also money involved here, right? We don't know. The U.S. media and the political establishment doesn't do a very good job of telling us repeatedly or consistently or accurately where these people are getting their money from for their campaigns. We know that the NRA, National Rifle Association, and other lobbyists on K Street in Washington, D.C., have a lot of power and money. So yes, they're talking to their constituents, but they're also talking to that sort of that base of people who put them in office financially and keep them there. I mean, this is a very complicated issue that is on its surface about guns, but it's also about issues of race. It's also about issues of geography and notions of states' rights. This is a very complicated issue, and one, in fact, where mostly these white folk who want to purchase guns don't recognize the ability and the right of black folk to hold guns when they're actually being targeted by state police and government violently. This is a very complicated issue and one that is playing itself out in schools and in grocery stores, at healthcare facilities. It's really unbelievable. The people who are suffering are the people on the ground.
Robert, you know about the kids who go to school with backpacks which have bulletproof material at the back so that at least a child will have some kind of protection if the unthinkable happens. What about the other ideas specifically about schools that Republicans might be coming up with to keep schools safer? Nobody seems to like the idea. No sensible person seems to like the idea of a teacher having a weapon inside a classroom.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was living in the United States, which I have except for the last 5 years, I had an altercation on a university campus where another professor thought I cut him off in a car, came violently across the parking lot. The police officer at the time said, well, if that had happened, I would have shot him and you would have been in your right to do that. It's a mindset. It's a mentality. It's a very scary environment sometimes. There are parts of the country where people walk their children to school and because there are concerns about stray bullets and needing to find ways around that. But really, this issue is based on a lot of whiteness about the ability to be able to carry a gun and hold a gun and use a gun because we have no other way, apparently, to deal with this. What the NRA and others have wanted are more police in schools. And what we found is that does create a pipeway to prisons for people who are non-white, many of them looking like the children who died in this last school shooting event. And we've seen that police are, if they're not corrupt or they're incapable of working, both at Parkland shooting and at this most recent one, are not responding and are not doing their jobs to protect people inside schools. It's a very scary environment to think that this can happen almost anywhere.
And it's so bizarre. Most of the rest of the world simply can't understand what's happening with guns in the United States. Robert, always a pleasure, as I said. Thank you so much, Robert Gutsche from Lancaster University.